right. Good evening, everybody. Sorry for the delay. Let me try to call in this conference call quickly. Hope everybody's doing well. Amen to that. I know what you mean. Let's go ahead and pray. Everybody got their Bible study resource, or if not, I got some extras up here if you need one. Here you go. Yes, sir. You're welcome. Those of you online joining us virtually, thank you for your presence on this evening. We want to migrate our way through the book of Numbers again. We're going to do a brief recap before we launch out into the deep on tonight. Robbie, you got yours? Okay. All right. Yep. Numbers. We're going to do a brief recap before we launch out into the deep. So we know that the book of Numbers is taken, the name Numbers is taken from the censuses that are taken in the book of Numbers. There are two censuses that are taken in the book of Numbers, which essentially are a counting of the people. They're numbered. The people are numbered, which is why we come up with this name for the book of Numbers. The Hebrew name for the book is more appropriately in the wilderness. I got an extra one. You need it? Okay. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, thank you. It's more appropriately in the wilderness. Now, we learned that the people were made to wander in the wilderness for 40 years because they refused to take possession of the land God promised them. Interesting concept that God promised them this land, but they refused to step into the land that God promised them out of fear and out of how they saw themselves. We know that they said we were in their sight as grasshoppers. So they wrestle with this understanding of themselves, and they are fearful because they refuse and they rebel against God because of unbelief. God faithfully keeps his promise to them, but they wrestle with their faith and their belief in God and hence in themselves. It's interesting that they, don't miss this, they couldn't go into the promised land because they did not believe themselves capable of going into it. But God told them that they were, and God told them that he was going to deliver them. So in essence, their lack of faith in themselves is a lack of faith in God. So that's them, but what about us? If we know God has said you're going to do this, or God has placed something in your heart, or God has spoken to you, and you may say, well, how do I know God said it? Well, if God spoke to you and you know it, that's God telling you. But when we don't walk into it, that's saying not that we don't have faith in ourselves solely, but also that we don't have faith in God. So what God does is he causes them to wander in the wilderness for 40 years because of their disbelief in him. Well, unbelief, better way of saying it, because they believe in God, but they have a hard time believing that God is going to allow them to be who God has said for them to be. That even sounds strange to say. They don't believe God is going to be who God has told them they're going to be. So we looked at chapters 13 through 14 about how they actually got into this situation and how they were caused to wander, and how God caused judgment to come on them, and they had to wander for all these times and all these years, and there was so much structure that God had placed. Then we talked about this new generation that would inherit the land. So I want us to turn to chapter 26 now. so we can really look deeply at this new generation. We're going to look at the census of the new generation and then see their preparation as well. So we're going to jump around a bit, but I want to give you all again the full scope of the book of Numbers. So verse 1 in chapter 26, Numbers chapter 26, verse 1 says, after the plague, the Lord said to Moses and to Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, take a census of the congregation of the people for 20 years old and upward, by their fathers' houses, all in Israel who are able to go to war. And Moses and Eleazar, the priests, spoke with them in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho, saying, take a census of the people from 20 years old and upward, as the Lord commanded Moses. The people of Israel who came out of the land of Egypt were Reuben, firstborn of Israel, the sons of Reuben. And they go through a list of the names. But let me get down to where we need to be. First, let's look back at verse 2. God tells them, take a census of all the congregation of the people of Israel from 20 years old and upward by their fathers' houses, all in Israel who are able to go to war. So God is setting aside the people that are left, the remnant, this new generation that he's brought up. And he wants to count those that are able to go to war. So in essence, he's preparing an army to go into what he's promised. They're still going to have to go to war and fight. But God says, I want you to number them, count who all is able to fight, and let me know what you got. It's a census is an assembly, a counting, a numbering, who is who. We go through the tribes to see who's who. So God is preparing them in the beginning. Now they don't go in until much later. We're in chapter 26. We don't really get in until the next book. But he says, count who's able to fight. So this tells us as a precursor that in order for them to get what God has promised them, they have to be willing to do what the previous generation would not do. Are y'all with me? So in order for them to get what God has for them, they have to be willing to do what has proven to previously be a point that others would not go into. Many times we look at our forefathers, our parents, our ancestors, and we say, well, I ain't my ancestors. That's a good and bad thing. It's a good thing because that shows us that you know more than your ancestors knew. But there are some characteristics of your ancestors you still got. And if you do not allow yourself to learn from your ancestors, you will fall in the same categories as your ancestors, even in 2022. So when we take this census, this numbering is not just for us, but it's also for them. They were counting, God was counting them because he was preparing them for war. Just to get preachy, if you're going to be ready for the next move of God, if we're ever going to be ready for where God's going to carry us forward, we have to be willing to take an accountability for where we are now and fight for where God has for us. If we want better in life, it's going to take some kind of effort, energy, and a fight, even though God has promised it to us. Now, theological question behind that is, why would God have them to fight for something that he's already promised them? Why doesn't God just give it to them? I mean, he promised it. He might as well give it to them anyway, because the only way they cannot have it is if they get in their own way. I think we just talked on the answer. God does not just give it, because if he gives it, we will feel like God is Santa Claus. We can do what we need to do to get on this good list. As long as we stay off the bad list, we'll get what we need. God is the genie. He's Aladdin. If we rub him the right way, then we'll get our 3 wishes and we'll be fine. But again, from Genesis up until now, it's about relationship. Established, continued, developed, wrestled with, understood. It's about relationship. Our connection to God is not just one of ask and receive. It's about relationship. So they have to fight and do what the generation before them was unwilling to do. Church talk. In every move in a church, in every church transition, in every era of a church, in every church season, there's a generation that has to be willing to go a step further than the previous generation. Generation X was always, they were plugged and pushed and taught do better than their parents. And guess what? They did. But Generation X, many of them, and I'm categorizing, but I'm painting with broad strokes. A lot of what people have talked about and kind of looked down on Generation X for is that they were so caught up in doing better that they allowed their children to just do. So now children feel like of these generations, Generation X and Generation and the baby boomers, older baby boomers. When older baby boomers had children, they fall in the same category as early Generation X children. Have all been generation. That's my generation. Millennials is owed to us. That I'm entitled because grandma got it, mama did better, so I'm owed this. I was not pushed and prodded to do better than I did because we felt like that generation before us had arrived. So I'm owed this stuff, and we can't commit because we saw them always seeking, never settling. That's why we don't stay on jobs long. We stay a little while, we looking for the next big thing. But those before us stayed some 30, 40 years and retired, advancing in their career. We don't want to wait. We want it all now. Why? Because I'm supposed to have it. But we can see how generations change. But in church, it's similar. We should always be seeking to do better than and go farther than and carry this thing beyond where the previous generation had it. It should never be, we need to carry it back to how it used to be. No, gotta go forward. God prepares them to fight in the next phase of where God is carrying them. Another interesting thing about the book of Numbers is that while they're on this journey, God is teaching them and showing them how they should still remain holy. Holy has been a consistency in Leviticus. And also, I told y'all before, week before last, that it's still shaping Numbers. Look at chapter 28 with me. Chapter 28, we're going to read verses 1 through satisfaction. How about that? And this is going to, Reverend Quinn, this is going to help people to see that this whole offering thing is not just a random thing. That it's not just random. So God causes them to wander, but he's teaching them while they wander. He's allowing their wandering and their judgment not just to be a harsh judgment, but to be one of learning and still developing relationships. Even in times that are bad, God is still good. Chapter 28, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command the people of Israel and say to them, my offering, my food for my food offerings, my pleasing aroma, you shall be careful to offer to me at its appointed time. Now, one of Robin's favorite chapters that we read about 3 weeks ago was how Aaron's sons gave a bad offering, and God took their life, and they were burnt because this offering they gave and they offered to God was in the wrong way. And now God is telling them and commanding them to do another offering in a specific way, fresh off of the reality that somebody did this previously and messed it up. In fact, Moses and Eleazar is Aaron's son. He's the brother of those that were consumed in the fire. And God is speaking to them, saying, telling Moses, command the people of Israel to say to them, my offering, my food offering, for my food offerings, my pleasing aroma, you should be careful to offer to me at its appointed time. And you shall say to them, this is the food offering that you shall offer the Lord. 2 male lambs, a year old without blemish, day by day is a regular offering. The one lamb you shall offer in the morning, the other lamb you shall offer at twilight. Also, a tenth of the ephah of fine flour for a grain offering, mixed with a quarter of a hin of beaten oil. It is a regular burnt offering, which was ordained at Mount Sinai for a pleasing aroma, a food offering to the Lord. Its drink offering shall be a quarter of hin in each lamb. In the holy place you shall put out a drink offering of a strong drink to the Lord. The other lamb you shall offer at twilight, the grain offering you shall offer in the morning, and it is the drink offering you shall offer it as a food offering with a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Why does God keep on saying pleasing, pleasing, pleasing? Maybe it's because they messed up previously and it wasn't pleasing, pleasing, pleasing. Verse 9, on the Sabbath day, 2 male lambs a year old without blemish, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a grain offering mixed with oil and its drink offering. It is the burnt offering on every Sabbath, besides the regular burnt offering, its drink offering. Chapter 11, monthly offerings. At the beginning of your months, you shall offer a burnt offering to the Lord: 2 bulls from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs, a year old without blemish, also 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a grain offering mixed with oil for each bull, and 2/10 of fine flour for a grain offering mixed with oil for the ram, and a tenth of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for every lamb, for a burnt offering with a pleasing aroma for a food offering to the Lord. Their drink offering shall be half a hin of wine for a bull, a third of a hin for a lamb, a quarter for a lamb, for a ram, and a quarter for a lamb. This is the burnt offering of each month throughout the months of the year. Also, 1 male goat for a sin offering to the Lord. It shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering for its drink. There it is. They're doing all this as a regular offering, not because they've done something wrong, just to keep them in right relationship. The offering is a part of worship and giving God what is due God and honoring God. So it keeps God in his place and keeps us in ours, which means that when we give, it's us acknowledging, I'm not doing this because I've done wrong. I'm doing this because it is right. He says, besides the sin offering. We got offerings on offerings on offerings, y'all. Consistently, if you scroll through, you can see offering, you see vows, you see offering, you see resettlements. Yeah, that's all that for the community. Yeah, that's yeah. It's a lot. I'm glad you said that. You actually got my next point. It's a lot, and this is where I was going, but you skipped ahead on me. It's a lot, but suggesting that God is asking for a lot means they have a lot. They still offering, ain't they? Yeah. So it's a requirement for the community. Yeah, but everybody. So in these times, it's communal living. So it ain't now we're looking at it through our postmodern. Uh, I you know we get it how we live, supply and demand. Consumerist, Western. This, I ain't got that much on it, but it's a communal offering. They're living in a community at this time. They're wandering. They're sharing herds. Certain people have certain roles. God's already segmented society. So this is an offering of the people for the Lord. So while one person may not have a tremendous amount of wealth, God still allows the community to have. So when I said they have a lot to give, I didn't mean, specific. We know there's still, those that don't have as much within the community, but by and large, the community is doing well. So God requires all this. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, great question. At one point, you didn't have anything but time, meaning that you didn't have money, you didn't have nothing, but all you could offer really was time. That's all that's required. If you think about it, time is the most precious gift you can give because you can't get it back, you can't earn it, you can't exchange it from anything else. Once you give it, You cannot recoup it. So if we give God our time, that literally is the greatest gift you can give. You give God your life. Beyond, if all you have is time, that is the most precious commodity. Even if you are rich, having that precious commodity of time outweighs being rich. So we may feel as though we don't have anything, but if you got time, you got a lot because you can't get it back. If I say, if I'm a millionaire, I say, Reverend Quinn, I'm gonna give you $900,000. I'm a millionaire. I only got $1 million. You're gonna say, "Wow, that's a lot, right? That's a lot of money. That is a lot. That's I can't even imagine." But if I say, Reverend Quinn, I only got 24 hours left to live. I'm gonna spend 23 with you. Which one is more priceless? Because I can't get that back. If I'm a millionaire, I made $1 million. I could probably move that 100,000 I still got and maybe come back up on where I was. But I ain't getting them hours back. So literally, if all we have to give in service is our time, and we give that to God, man, that outweighs any price you can put on anything, because that is something you cannot get back. And a lot of people, and I preach and I teach. I don't teach amounts. It's about consistency. It's about our effort. It's about what we're willing to do. Willingness is more valuable than worth. If you are willing, I mean, it's biblical. It's in the gospel when Jesus said the lady with the 2 mites gave more than anybody else gave. These 2 pennies, essentially, she gave more because that's all she had. So she literally gave all she had, and even though it was just 2 pennies, and somebody may have gave $10,000, 2 pennies were more valuable than 10,000 because that's all she had. So if all you got is time and all you give is time, because a lot of people, I'm glad you asked the question. A lot of people feel like if I'm going to give, it's got to be something tangible. I'm gonna get in trouble for this. Let's see this. When I go to revivals and I go to different events and church stuff, specifically church stuff, I ain't say Christian, church stuff, they want to call out Dr. So-and-so gives $1,000. Reverend so-and-so gives $200. Reverend so-and-so gives $100. So-and-so, $100. So-and-so. Why? Well, they see us, we don't want to leave from behind. They're setting the standard. They're setting the, no. Because guess what? If somebody came in with 20 and they decided before they came in, all I'm giving is 1, they're not going to give 19 because you gave 1,000. They're going to look at you and say, oh, okay. Yeah. So people feel like if I ain't giving big, then I ain't going to give it all. No. Give your big, and that is giving big. If God blesses somebody to come in and that's why the concept of tithing is so important, because tithing helps us look beyond amounts and look at percentages. So it puts all of us on the same level. We may not all have the ability to give $1,000 a Sunday, but we all have the ability to give 10%. I can't get 10%. You can get 10% of whatever you have. You may only have $10. 10% is $1. You can give $1. No, I can't do that. Why not? Well, I need that for so and so, so and so. Well, for them cigarettes, that's $7 right there. Oh, I'm sorry, 10. That's $10 right there. For that burger. I went to where was we at? Went to Burger King with the kids. A Whopper is $6 and some change on the menu. I'm like, $6 for one burger. So you can. It's just you have not you haven't understood that you could. I don't say want to. You haven't understood. So it's just shifting our minds to do so. And people say I don't have the time. You got a whole lot of time. I can't come on Wednesdays because that's when my show come on. But you can you ain't got DVR no more. Yeah, you can record. You don't have to. It's all well. I can't come on Sundays because Sundays it's so far. By the time I get down there, then I won't have time to get back to because what I normally do on Sundays. And I just keep on talking. I ain't gonna tell you what it is. My Sundays they just different now, so I just can't. I don't know about coming in person. And then they hit you with, well, it. I don't know how safe it is. I'm trying to stay safe. Didn't I just see you? Yeah, you ain't you going to, on Bill? Did I just see you tailgating? True. But we still got a mask requirement in here. So yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what they say. So it you know it giving and offering. It's interesting that after all these years we still talking about it. But what you said was right on target. If all you have to give is time, give your time. Serve, give God your time, because you'll always be blessed giving your time to God. Always. But it's something you cannot get back. So if you waste it, you don't get it back. My I told y'all that Reverend Boyd, Pastor Boyd, died in a car accident this past weekend. And I told my fraternity brothers that you never know how many people's lives you touch, many times even while you yet live. Memphis is a big small city. I was dropping my son off this morning, and his teacher at daycare said, I won't be here Saturday for the open house because my cousin died. I was like, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. She was like, yeah, Reverend Boyd. I said, yeah, I know Reverend Boyd. She said, yeah, that was my cousin. I'm like, man, I didn't realize y'all were even related. Look on Facebook and you see everybody knew him. He was connected to everybody, and it's a blessing to see just how connected and how meaningful a life is. In his bio, they talked about how he worked for these people, how he did this, how he went there, how he did that, spending time at all these places, but meaningful time. People knew who he was and how he was because he was consistent everywhere he went, but meaningful time. He didn't waste time. People say, well, I knew he was a preacher, but I don't know what he preached. I don't know where he was. He didn't just hide. He used his time and the gifts that God gave him to be who he was. Meaningful time. Ministry is not just going to be on Sunday. We got to use the time that we have to be who we are wherever we go. That means that even beyond Sunday morning, we still have to use our time wisely. Because we never know. We never know. So that's why what you said, at one point in time in your life, all you had to give was time. Man, that time is such a precious commodity. And God requires a lot of them, but in their life, in the life of this community, they have to utilize their time to build community. And community building is a ministry. They're not just wandering, because if the book of Numbers was just about wandering, it'd be really short. So while they're wandering, God is yet teaching them. In the resource that we have, under something note, now we said 2 weeks ago, we'll say it again. It says transitional periods in life of a nation often serve to define the character and the future of their people. How we spend our time in transitional periods shapes our character. It builds us for our future. They built upon earlier foundations, but they diverge into arenas of livelihood, character, and constitution. The analysis in the analysis of the broad history of a given people, these intervals are pivotal in assessing major movements that illuminate the particulars of later epochs. we have to understand that how we do while we are yet not there yet is just as important as what we do when we get there. If we're building to get there and we are in this transitional phase, talked about it Sunday, how the on the Emmaus Road, disciples are leaving from Jerusalem, going down to Emmaus, and Emmaus is a transitional place, lowlands. It's a transition of the geography. But how they are there is Jesus remains with them, teaches them, and they see him and say, "Did not our hearts burn?" How they change there has a great bearing on the rest of their ministry. If we treat transition as something that we don't want to deal with and we don't want to move, we're gonna stay stuck. We're gonna let God move us. I'm gonna move when the Lord tell me to. I'm gonna do well. God has you in that pattern for a reason. If you're not learning in the transition, if you're not developing in that transition, how are you gonna be ready for war? God makes them ready in numbers for the war and receiving the land, the promised land. It's a promise. It's a promise. They've seen it. They've walked around in it. They had to get out of it. And the next generation got to go in. Think about it. They sent out spies. Two of the spies that went and spied got to go. The others couldn't because they had bad reports. Imagine walking around in the place and like, oh God, this what we gonna be? This what we got, this what you got for us? Great. Hey y'all, it's wonderful. No, it wasn't, it was bad. Wasn't nothing good there. 40 years wasted before you get to see it again. And those that didn't learn died. Those that had good reports got to go in. It will be the equivalent of God showing us in this ministry wonderful days. And us stepping back pandemic and saying, well, no, I don't know. We're going to be able, I don't know if I like it was just too strong. I don't think, no. I'm not. Now we got to wonder and watch a generation fall off just for those that saw well. It's the equivalent of that. But how we handle transition dictates how we'll walk in the future. So Numbers is a very important book in the Bible. Biblically, it's situated in such a way that we can learn from it, that it teaches us a whole lot. They were on the edge of the promised land, but they had to wander for 40 years because of fear and unbelief and rebellion. God, I know you said it, but nope. Imagine telling God no. Imagine telling God no. Yeah, it's a place flowing with milk and honey. Look at these grapes and pomegranates that God has given us. Look how wonderful the land is. But the people there, they were giants. And we saw ourselves as grasshoppers, and they looked at us the same way. Oh, this new age of ministry is great. Look at how many people we can touch. Look at how we can advance the ministry. Look at how God has blessed. Yeah, but stuff's so expensive. Folks saw how our church looked on the inside. So we didn't look good. So to ourselves. So to them, we can't look good. All right, I'll give y'all 40 more years. Maybe Chase will be ready to go. Are y'all with me? But so we have to be in a position where those that see well speak louder than those that see negative. Negativity can be contagious. Somebody can say, I don't see it. Other folks, my daddy says this and I'm done. He says you can have somebody that proclaims vision. They stand before the church and say, pastor stand before church say, I see so-and-so. I see this. I see that. I see that. I see this. And one person can get up and say, well, pastor, I don't see it. And people will line up behind a professed blind man. He's telling you he can't see. And you're gonna go get behind somebody that can't see and not line up behind somebody that says they can see. So literally, we rather follow somebody blind than somebody with sight. Pastor, I don't see it. People gonna line up behind the I don't see. Just think about that. Somebody says you, I can see so and so. Robin, I can see down the street. Bro Smith said, I can't see down there. I'm going Bro Smith. Just think about it. But that's what happens. Why? Fear, unbelief, rebellion. Rebellion. God, I know you said it, but I don't know. I know you said it though, but I don't know. Well, if you knew, you wouldn't need God. Questions, comments, thoughts. Next week we're gonna be, y'all know we're gonna be next week. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, right. Some kind of interaction. Mm-hmm. It was 10, yeah. No, yeah, it was 12 that went, 10 that had bad reports, 2 that had good. Right. Yeah. How did they let you get back? Yeah. 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 Great point. Because if it's such a bad place for everybody to go, how did just 10 of you make it? How did 12 of y'all get back out? If it's that bad, and you got to leave their land with things from their land, how is it that bad? You're right. I agree. It just doesn't make sense. But we've done things that make less. I give you an example. These gas prices too high. We was better off. Y'all know where I'm going. People say we were better off with Trump in office. When Trump was in office, but they forget just how bad we were in the midst of a civil war, pretty much. But one bad thing, people just so it don't make sense if you just think logically about it. If it's such a bad place, how did just 12 of y'all survive it? And you came back with proof? Yeah, ain't nobody hurt, nobody got captured, nobody was killed, nobody was squashed since y'all are grasshoppers. How? And then Caleb said, we're well capable of doing. He said, yeah, we can get this. We can do this. It's a great land. It's flowing. We got everything we need, and we can do it. But now I don't see it. It's bad when you look at yourself as small. That's a bad thing. But yeah, Bro Smith, I'm all the way with you there. Just don't make sense. Just don't make sense because I've been going back here since the last time we had this conversation. But Dr. Taylor said it. He said you don't have to have mega members to have a mega ministry. You only is the only size you are is the size that you have in your own eyes. If you see yourself as small, you small. If you see yourself as great, you're great. However you see yourself is what matters. It don't matter. It don't. John Moran is a great example. They asked him in a podcast. I think it was no, wasn't All the Smoke. It was the Pivot podcast. So he said, "Man, when you're not a big guy, you small. When you catch the ball and you drive into to the basket, are you automatically thinking dunk the ball, regardless of who's in front of you. I mean, you got 7-foot guys that you're trying to dunk over and you have dunked over. What are you thinking when you go to the basket? He said, well, I'm only thinking one thing. Whoever in front of me finna get dunked on. Not if it's a guard, if it's a forward, if it's a center. He said whoever it is. And many times, most times, he's the smallest man on the floor. But he said when he catches and he sees go, he doesn't care who it is because he just sees himself dunking over whoever shows up. We gotta have that mindset that whatever it is, I don't care what is in front of me. All I know is I'm about to score. It doesn't matter who it is, how many it is. It don't matter what the odds are. If there's an education requirement, if there's a networking situation that I don't have, if it's a financial situation I hadn't overcome yet, if it's something that I just haven't foreseen, if it's a health issue, I don't care what it is in front of me. God has gifted me with the ability to rise above whatever it is. So I'm going to do what I got to do. We got to have that mindset. In ministry, we got to have that mindset. I don't care what it is in front of me. We $100,000 capital campaign. I don't care because I'm not counting my pockets. I know I may only have X amount, but I know so and so, and then I'm in this network or I'm in that, or everybody likes to do is I got this idea. We gotta have that Ja Morant mindset. Go Grizzlies. Gotta have that Ja Morant mindset. You gotta have it. Big Memphis. You gotta have that Ja Morant mindset. So that I agree with you, Bruce Smith, wholeheartedly. It don't make sense. It makes sense to trust God. What we put in our own heads is senseless. Last comments before we wrap up tonight. All right. Next week, Deuteronomy. Gonna get real interesting. Gonna get real interesting in Deuteronomy. A lot of people skip over it. A lot of good preaching in Deuteronomy. A lot of good preaching in Deuteronomy. If anybody needs, there's one, Reverend Quinn, I got to give you one resource that you missed, and I didn't email out to everybody either before we leave. But let's go ahead and pray, y'all. Yes. This coming Tuesday. Thank you for that. This coming Tuesday on Lee Street at Lake Grove Missionary Baptist Church. I know why you know the name of the church. Lake Grove Missionary Baptist Church. At 7:00, we'll be at Lake Grove. I'll be lecturing Tuesday night. My uncle will be preaching after I lecture on Tuesday night. The 17th, 18th, and 19th is the revival. It's a citywide revival at churches all throughout the city. However, we're in the district area for Lake Grove, so we'll be at Lake Grove Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night. Is that Tuesday, 17th, 18th? Or was it a Monday? So yeah, it's gonna be that Monday, 17th. Yeah, 17th is that Monday. And I need to, Brother Marcellus asked me through text message. So y'all remind me to text him back. It's gonna be Monday, the 17th at Lake Grove Missionary Baptist Church. That's 265 Leith Street, Memphis, Tennessee, 38105. Never mind. I'll be lecturing on Tuesday night, the 18th. Thank you, Tara. Tuesday night. They moved. At first, I was, Tuesday night, new flyer. Tuesday night, the 18th, 7:00. We'll be lecturing. My uncle will be preaching Tuesday night. 18th, Tuesday night. 18th, Tuesday night. 18th, Tuesday night. All right. Thank you, Tara. I struggled through that, but y'all, we got it. That's why the media team is so important, because they can just put it on the screen and I can correct myself as I go. We will still have Bible study. We'll still have Bible study. No, normally I try to be in, but we moving on this. So I want to get through books of Bible. So yeah, we will still have Bible study Wednesday too. Don't tell the district. At Lake Grove. Tuesday I'll be at Lake Grove. Yep. Please join me. Let's pray. Yeah, you can walk. That's why I know you know the name. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you again for allowing us to come together. We thank you for all that we've experienced. We pray that we let this word to be rooted in us, that as we go forward and as we live and as we go, that we will see ourselves as who you've called and caused us to be. That we know that we are not grasshoppers, Lord, and whatever may be in front of us, you've equipped us to be well capable of taking over the land that you have promised. We love you. We thank you for all that you've done. Please continue to lead us, guide us, and be with us, and we'll be careful to give you all the praise, Lord, and honor that you are due. As we leave this place, go with us. Let us find those people and things that we left even better than when we left them. And please be with us until we meet again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.